today's Scaling Up webinar. You are all on mute until the presentation is over in about 20 minutes, and then we'll open up the phone lines for your questions. In the meantime, please feel free to use the chat box, which is on the right-hand panel, about 2/3 of the way down. You can enter your chat questions in there and select one of us down at the bottom or to the entire audience. So as we're getting started, feel free to enter something into the chat box and just tell us what park or program or office or region you might be calling in from today. Just enter in anything you like and press send so we get a good sense of where you're all calling in from today. And as you're entering that stuff in the chat box, I will open up the presentation for today. Just to remind you all, the Scaling Up team, the Scaling Up initiative is an NPS-led initiative, which is focusing on conservation of natural and cultural resources in land and seascapes, and encourages the parks and regions and programs to really look beyond their boundaries to collaborate with others to conserve larger landscapes across the country and internationally. And the Scaling Up webinar series is one way that the team can facilitate awareness amongst Park Service employees and our partners about landscape scale conservation. So today I'm really thrilled to be introducing to you two panelists who are going to share with us the Explore Natural Communities featured program, which is a part of NatureServe, and the two of them will be giving you some context for that. And I would like to introduce to you the two women who will speak with you today. The first is Diane Pavek, who is a research coordinator with the NPS National Capital Region and their research learning center called Urban Ecology Research Learning Alliance. And the Explore Natural Communities website is their signature project. And Judy Teague is going to start off speaking to us first. She's a senior regional ecologist with NatureServe, where she's been working for about 15 years, creating vegetation classifications and mapping for the National Park Service, DoD, and other agencies. She is a research coordinator working with Diane on this project. And so the two of them will be tag teaming today and will make their presentation, and then we will open it up for questions at the end. And a reminder again, you're all on mute, but feel free to use the chat box. And then we will open up the lines at the end. So with that, I would like to turn the presentation over to Judy and Diane.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Please chat if you're having difficulty seeing the screen or hearing any of us. Scrolling through the attendee list, it's nice to see familiar names and some folks that we've worked with on Explore Natural Communities, so that's exciting. And we're very pleased to be here with you today to talk with you about explorenaturalcommunities.org website. We have three main sections to the presentation today. I'll start with telling you a little bit about NatureServe in case some of you are not familiar with us. I'll touch on some of the work that NatureServe and the National Park Service have collaborated on over the years. And then Diane will talk with you about the work we've been doing together on explorenaturalcommunities.org. Then I will go over some selected features of Explore Natural Communities website that relate to scaling up, and we'll leave some time at the end for questions. So NatureServe represents a network of more than 80 biodiversity information centers across the Americas. It's all of the green areas you see here. And we scale up this biodiversity data from local to regional, national, and international levels. We manage methodology data standards from the field to the database to data analysis. And in our biotics database, we manage information on more than 70,000 species and 1,600 ecosystems. Our work primarily emphasizes these 5 questions about species and ecosystems. Our focus is on gathering, standardizing, managing, and sharing knowledge about biodiversity. So NatureServe has been collaborating with the National Park Service on projects for many years. Actually, we've been working together since long before NatureServe's split off from the Nature Conservancy in 2000. And one of our longest running collaborations with the National Park Service has been on vegetation classification and mapping. This work is supported across NPS by the National Park Service's Vegetation Inventory Program, and most natural resource parks in the National Park Service either have completed vegetation maps or have ones that are underway. The vegetation classification and maps that we developed for the parks in the National Capital Region of the Park Service are what form the underlying data on which the web-based tool that we'll be talking about today, Explore Natural Communities, is based. Another tool supported by the National Park Service is our Landscape Chesapeake web portal, which is a landscape and conservation planning tool that Lori Scott and Nick Moy talked about in the July Scaling Up webinar. If you missed Lori and Nick's presentation, please look for a recording of it on the Scaling Up webinar website. Now we'll move on to the main topic of today's talk, the Explore Natural Communities website. As I mentioned, explorenaturalcommunities.org builds on the classification and mapping of vegetation at national parks. It translates this vegetation data into information about natural communities, which are predictable combinations of plants and animals occurring on the landscape. It is an interactive website that serves information and maps about natural communities and other aspects of park natural history to both park stewards and visitors alike. It is accessible on mobile devices, and since it is a website, anyone with an internet connection and a mobile device can use it in the park to learn about natural communities as they track their location along trails. It provides easy access to sometimes complex vegetation patterns and natural history information, and it uses easy to understand language and interactive maps with a goal of supporting sound stewardship and conservation decisions by a diverse audience. So these are the screenshots of the home page on a laptop or desktop computer on the left and a mobile phone on the right. Now I'm going to turn it over to Diane Pavek with the National Park Service's National Capital Region Urban Ecology Research Learning Alliance. Diane was our main partner with the National Park Service on the vegetation maps for the National Capital Region and on explorenaturalcommunities.org. She is going to tell you a little bit about the collaboration between the National Park Service's National Capital Region and NatureServe that created the Explore Natural Communities website. Okay, over to you, Diane.
Thank you, Judy. National parks protect species and scale up to protect regional biodiversity. This is an important function for the 16 national parks in the National Capital Region. This region lies within 3 states and the District of Columbia, which you see here. The green blobs are the national parks. It's a good fit for the National Park Service to work with NatureServe, who is the network of the state natural heritages. Parks protect natural communities in this urban and urbanizing area surrounding the nation's capital. This is what makes explorenaturalcommunities.org an important website tool for the parks of the National Capital Region. We need NatureServe to help communicate about the complex scientific vegetation classification and mapping data. National parks need partners to help create stewardship opportunities. The National Capital Region parks are where people work and play. This is the human connection with human stories. ExploreNaturalCommunities.org, the website, helps people understand the role of national parks in maintaining a connected landscape in a regional context. ExploreNaturalCommunities.org has an interactive map viewer. This is Rock Creek, you see, with its communities in different colors surrounded by Washington, D.C. streets. This map viewer provides place-based access to the interpretation of complex vegetation mapping and classification information, It helps the National Park Service effectively both manage and interpret resources and enriches visitor experiences in the parks, such as creating custom maps to build hikes. It allows for connections, such as the youth interns we've had creating podcasts over the past 3 summers that are about natural communities for users to access on the trail via their mobile phones. Interns have created over 40 podcasts and videos about natural communities. This slide shows you the review process for the intern podcasts, starting with field trips on the upper left and ending in the bottom right with a mobile phone. ExploreNaturalCommunities.org has had support from the Urban Ecology Research Learning Alliance, for which I'm the research coordinator. This is its flagship project. And it gets support from individual parks, from the National Capital Region, and from the national level recreation fee funds. The National Vegetation Inventory has not paid for any of this outreach. We ask different questions about park resources at different scales, from the local level, which is also called a finer scale, up to the landscape level, or coarser scale. ExploreNaturalCommunities.org serves science at different scales. For example, scientists and researchers who are not plant experts can use this website to understand better where to look for different individual animal species or populations. And cultural resource managers can use the plant community data in their cultural landscape reports. Scaling up from the local park management to the region provides an improved use of expertise, economy of scale and shared goals, and gives fiscal flexibility and nimbleness. There is an economy of scale, and you can see the progression here. The total number of plant communities in the National Capital Region parks is 113. We started with Rock Creek Park's plant communities for the website. Each additional park brings shared communities and information. So adding a new park to the website is more efficient because we already have information about the shared plant communities. Parks benefit by connecting with each other to share information and work on common goals. ExploreNaturalCommunities.org helps a novice naturalist to understand ecological processes. Parks will always be managed at the local level, the finer scale. We hope that parks will have an active role at the landscape level, working toward long-term conservation goals shared with others. ExploreNaturalCommunities.org is one step towards achieving this goal. Back to you, Judy.
Okay, thank you, Diane. So I'm going to move on, and these are the 6 main points that we want you to remember about the features of ExploreNaturalCommunities.org with respect to scaling up. And I will start with how it has several user-friendly features that help make complex vegetation and ecological information more accessible and understandable by a diverse audience. ExploreNaturalCommunities.org provides easy-to-use interactive maps for users who don't use technical geographic information system tools, and it provides quick access to this mapped information for those that do. It translates scientific names and technical research into a common language and easily understood stories and multimedia products. To illustrate how ExploreNaturalCommunities.org reaches across disciplines, this is an example of how it was used by interpretive staff at Rock Creek Park to develop handouts for bird walks during their event celebrating International Migratory Bird Day. In this case, the desktop map viewer Build a Hike tool was used to create a hike. So this is segment 1 and this is segment 2, and then generate a map, a legend, and a report that describes the natural communities occurring along the trail. Participants on the hike were able to use this handout to learn about natural communities and keep track of the birds they were seeing along the way. The next point we want you to remember is that Explore Natural Communities helps build a sense of stewardship in users. It does this by providing opportunities for users to dig deeper into the content, to make connections with their own observations of natural communities at the parks. This is the introduction page for the Oak Beach Heath Forest Natural Community in Rock Creek Park. For each natural community, users can learn a variety of characteristics, such as how to recognize it along park trails, identify the characteristic species, learn about seasonal highlights, find out where to see it in the park, and understand its conservation status. By clicking on any one of these sections, a new page opens with information about that section, in this case, how to recognize it in the park. I encourage you to visit explorenaturalcommunities.org to see the kind of information we share about natural communities at a park. Moving on to point number 3, we want you to remember is that Explore Natural Communities illustrates shared resources. Park managers can not only use this website as a tool to better recognize patterns in the landscape at their own park, but to easily identify other parks with similar resources. By scaling up, Explore Natural Communities will enable parks to find other places that share their resources so that they can form relationships, share knowledge, and work together on common conservation goals within and across NPS regions. In this case, you can see that the Chestnut Oak Mountain Laurel Forest Natural Community occurs in 3 National Park Service regions, represented here by these different colored boxes. Here we have used Explore Natural Communities interactive map to see where the Chestnut Oak Mountain Laurel Forest Natural Community is found in Great Falls Park, which is part of George Washington Memorial Parkway, and in Harpers Ferry National Historical Park, about 60 miles away. Once we have a standard definition of what it is, and we know where it is across a region, then we can begin to ask questions about how is it doing, or how is it changing over time. And as more lands are classified and mapped, the data begin to represent the majority of natural communities under conservation stewardship. And this is not just a desktop exercise. With a mobile device and an internet connection, Explore Natural Communities can be taken into the park and used to find, learn about, and investigate natural communities and other natural resources on the ground. Users can track their location along trails, query the map for information about nearby natural communities, and use pictures of plants and animals to learn to recognize them in the field. They can also enjoy pre-built hikes, listen to podcasts, as Diane mentioned, and watch videos, all focused on the natural history and natural communities of the park. So I've been down in the weeds a little, showing you how Explore Natural Communities allows users to dig deeper for fine-scale information. And now I want to take us back up to the landscape level for the 4th point we want you to remember. Explore Natural Communities can help connect information about the natural communities at a park with landscape-level conservation planning tools. As you know, patterns of biodiversity can be studied at many scales. For Explore Natural Communities, we focus on 2 ecological classifications. Ecological systems is one, and natural communities in the National Vegetation Classification is the other. Finer scaled vegetation maps, like natural communities, can be scaled up to coarser scale classifications like ecological systems. For example, in the 11 National Capital Region parks, there are 113 natural communities, but only 24 ecological systems. Scaling up this vegetation data to ecological systems lets the parks link their natural resources to landscape-level conservation programs and planning tools like the Gap Analysis Program or Landfire, a vegetation, fire, and fuel characteristics mapping tool. So because it's based on a scalable vegetation classification, Explore Natural Communities can help place parks into regional and national conservation planning activities. The fifth point we want you to remember is that one of the strengths of Explore Natural Communities is the standardized technical data behind all the user-friendly interfaces. The National Vegetation Classification Process Standard is important for conservation because it provides a standard through which natural communities can be identified and mapped. It also provides guidance for data collection and analysis. For the National Capital Region, a regional classification was performed using from around 3,000 field plots. So we're at the last point we want you to remember about the Explore Natural Communities website. It is designed to continually scale up to serve an ever-growing number of parks, preserves, or other public or private lands with vegetation maps. Both the web pages and the interactive maps are built with templates that can be used to store and serve information from new parks or other managed areas. And we would like to broaden our vision to include new partners. We would like to grow the number of parks and other places participating in explorenaturalcommunities.org, because as we grow, the information begins to represent the majority of vegetation types under conservation stewardship. So these are the 6 points we want you to remember about explorenaturalcommunities.org, just in review. And we welcome new input to create a shared vision for Explore Natural Communities moving forward, and we would love to have you join us. So thank you, everyone, and now I think we have some time if there are any questions.
Thank you, Judy and Diane. Folks who have questions, Cass, can we unmute the phones?
One second, I'm working on that. While we're waiting for everyone to be unmuted, there is one question that's already in our question box, and feel free to use that chat function to post your questions as well. I can see we got a couple in there already. This question says, the land trust, national and local, are becoming major landholders in the U.S. Do you have an example of synergy of data sharing with these organizations and the federal state properties?
Currently, we don't have any land trusts that are participating in Explore Natural Communities, but it's certainly an area that we would like to expand into. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but if not, please clarify.
Okay, and again, we're in the process of unmuting everyone here. Another question in the question box, and again, as we're unmuting folks, if you don't want to ask a question aloud, feel free to mute yourself so we don't have unnecessary feedback. Another question in our question box is there a strategy in place to incorporate natural community changes from climate change?
This is Diane. Whenever you update your veg map, which I'm assuming there's a reason or a plan with regard to VegMap. So you want to be able to record changes. It's very expensive to do a VegMap, so you look for some significant change in your vegetation, like a hurricane or climate change. So it would be up to you to set the mile markers and up to you to set your vegetation mapping project. And then we would incorporate your final products if that's where you wanted to go.
Great. And we'll just answer. We have 2 more questions in the question box, and we'll open up any of the other lines. Question about the vegetation maps. Are they only available for NCR parks currently?
You mean on explorenaturalcommunities.org? Yes. Please give us a call if you want to join.
Great. And the last one that's in the box at this point is, have you reached out broadly to any of the other large land managing agencies like the Forest Service or Fish and Wildlife or BLM to make them aware of this and gauge their interest in joining?
Judy?
We have done some outreach, but we're just kind of now beginning to do that. We've just expanded it. We started out with Rock Creek Park in the National Capital Region, and we're just now expanding it to other National Capital Region parks. So we're kind of at that point right now for our version of scaling up. And so that's kind of the direction we're going in this year, is to reach out. I have reached out to some state parks, and certainly we'll be reaching out to other managers. And if you know of other federal or protected area or land trust managers that you think would be interested in this, please send them our way.
Great. And we do have a couple more questions in the box there, but if, all the phones should be unmuted at this point. So if you have a question, feel free to speak up. Go ahead and open the lines now. Okay, we'll bounce back over to that question box. Will you collect visitation data to these natural communities?
Not me. You want to get a social scientist involved, please do.
I would add that I think the question is really about visitation at the parks. We do have the ability, with Google Analytics to track and find out kind of who is visiting which parts of the website to some degree. So we are looking at that information.
Okay. And then another couple just in the box that appeared. And Dale, I may actually ask you to speak up just to clarify. You had posted a question about these communities being online at this time. Can you clarify that question for us?
Yeah, I just want to know, is all of Harpers Ferry online now?
Judy?
The map for Harpers Ferry is online, Dale.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the web pages are being built out offline, and those haven't been.
Mm-hmm. Right,
yet.
That's what I was curious about.
Go check it out, Dale.
The map, go look at the map.
Oh, well, I was going to do it right now. I mean, I looked at some parts that we were looking at stuff before, and I just want to sit there and see if the whole thing is there now.
Yeah, you saw it in draft.
Mm-hmm.
And we do appreciate feedback when anyone is using it. For any reason you have questions or it's not working for you, please let us know.
Okay.
Great. And one more in our question box there. And again, after that, we'll open up the line. So if you're thinking of a question, feel free to unmute yourself to get ready for that. This question is asking sort of two parts. Is there a grant backing this project, or is the website funded long range as a budget item?
Nope, there's no baseline funding for this. We knock on doors and beg every step of the way.
Okay.
I mentioned.
We'll go ahead and go ahead. Sorry,
talked over you. I mentioned RecC, and that was really quite a help. They emphasize, visitor experience, and if you can craft your RecC project in those terms, that's one way that you can seek support for outreach for your vegetation map. I encourage you to do that.
Assuming we have last few minutes remaining, assuming we have RecC. With just the last few minutes here, we'll open it up for any other questions for our speakers today.
So hello, this is Giselle Mora from the Gulf Coast CESU. And
Hello.
hello. I just want to congratulate you for such a strive. This looks really wonderful. But just going back to vegetation maps and why we do this. So it was defined as one of those sets of data that all parks should have, and it's taken us a long time to complete the maps that we feel confident they are more or less a good representation of what's out there. So I guess now we need to learn how to use this data and how to we recognize that it's important. But you mentioned some uses, the education value and the use of this data to connect people to the places seems pretty obvious. But can you give to the audience some examples of how we could use these maps to actually manage and plan in national parks? Even if we are not using it as it is, but the potential of actual value of these maps. And I'll just leave it like that right now.
Mm-hmm. Sure. As you noted, one of the very great uses is to reach out to those people who don't know about vegetation or formal vegetation ideas. And when we're working, we've been tasked with this thing called a resource stewardship strategy, the RSS. And it's an integrated NR and CR effort, for instance. And one of the easiest ways that you can take a look at the biodiversity in a park is to take a look at your vegetation map. The thing about our vegetation maps is all the data that's sitting underneath it. So we have G-ranked communities, and you can know what is rare, what is special for your park. And that is so easily pulled up into the ecological system level, and that is how you connect to the larger landscape. And one of the things that we're doing in the National Capital Region is trying to have a regional look at managing our resources. So we are trying to roll up information and set goals for the region. And having your vegetation maps is just one of the pieces of data. And remember, the vegetation map sits on layers of elevation, the topography, so you have your slope, your aspects. It sits on geology as well as soils. So it's a way, it's like a shorthand way of looking at all the very complex, special things that a park is providing. So that is one side of the house. I had mentioned using plant community data for the cultural landscape reports. We have done that with Harper's Ferry, actually. And so it is a tool that you, as you grow in your thinking about management and you become more familiar with it, you will turn to it for answers. That's just like scratching the surface. But I just wanted to say thank you to Giselle Mora, because she started on this trail with us to develop this website. So thank you, Giselle.
Yes, and thanks for me too, Giselle. Good to hear your voice.
All right, Cass, I think I've gotten the nod from you. This is Suzanne. I think we're going to wrap up this particular session of the Scaling Up webinar series. Thank you so much, Judy and Diane, for giving us this fabulous information. A note to all of you still on the phone that this presentation is going to be put up on the Scaling Up Toolkit website within minutes after we wrap up. It should be up this afternoon or first thing tomorrow. So make sure that you visit that page if you want to access it or you want to share it with others. And I am putting the link to the Scaling Up Toolkit in the chat box again for you all. And a reminder that the next Scaling Up webinar is going to be on August 23rd at 4 o'clock Eastern time. There will be a calendar invitation being sent out if you're on the mailing list. And the subject on the 23rd will be around Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and the Three Mountain Alliance. So again, thank you to Judy and Diane for spending their time with us today and sharing their work. And I look forward to everyone's participation on next month's webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.